Prepare to immerse yourselves in a dark and disturbing enigma. The story of Vitória, a 17-year-old girl from Cajamar, São Paulo, is a painful and outrageous chapter in the chronicle of violence against women in Brazil. Disappeared on February 26th, after leaving work, Vitória left behind unsettling clues and audios sent to a friend. The presence of suspicious men following her. What should have been a routine commute turned into a real nightmare. A horror movie that culminated in the discovery of her body in a macabre scene of extreme violence and cruelty. The death of Vitória Regina de Souza shook Brazil, exposing the depths of violence that plagues the country. The gaps and dark revelations that emerge from the investigation paint a disturbing picture, where the search for truth becomes a labyrinth of uncertainties. The complexity of Vitória's case, with its multiple suspects and obscure motivations, demands a meticulous analysis of every detail, every statement, every clue. The investigation, under judicial secrecy, safeguards crucial information, protecting the investigation from external interference and ensuring the integrity of the process. However, the need for transparency and the right to information clash with secrecy, generating a debate about the limits of privacy and public interest. The search for a balance between these two poles becomes fundamental to guarantee justice and the trust of society in institutions. Despite the secrecy, crucial information has been gathered, allowing the public to follow the developments of Vitória's case. The analysis of statements, security camera images, and other elements allows for a panorama of the investigation, identifying suspects, motivations, and possible crime scenarios. The disclosure of relevant information, always with responsibility and respect for the victim and her family, contributes to the public debate and the search for justice. The search for justice amid a brutal crime is our focus. In this episode, we will explore all the details gathered so far. The investigation is still ongoing, and the absolute truth remains hidden in the shadows. What really happened in the early hours of February 26th? Who are the mysterious men who were following Vitória? What were the motives that led to this act of such violence? Will justice be able to unravel the truth behind this heinous crime? From now on, let's unravel this brutal crime together. Hello everyone. Welcome to the True Crime Files Investigations channel. If you are a lover of real criminal stories, get ready for an exciting marathon. Every week, we will explore shocking and remarkable cases, the most complex and intriguing ones, with an in-depth analysis of the details and motivations behind each event, which leads us to question human nature. Subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos, and ensure you're always up to date with our exclusive content. Leave your like to strengthen our community and motivate me to bring more and more impactful and unprecedented stories. Get ready to discover the backstage of the crime world, learn about the failures of the judicial system and the stories of victims fighting for justice. Welcome to an investigative and emotional journey. I count on you on this journey. The truth is about to be revealed. So, fasten your seatbelts, because the investigation begins now.
Ai, amiga, mas tá de boa, sabe? Quem ele estava no ônibus, só que nenhum deles desceu no mesmo ponto que eu. Saiu até lágrima dos meus olhos agora. Nossa, até me arrepiei.
The story of Vitória Regina de Souza, a young woman of just 17 years old, has transformed into a dark and disturbing tale, a nightmare that echoed across social media and newspaper headlines. Vitória's disappearance, a resident of Greater São Paulo, on February 26th, shed light on the fragility of women's safety in Brazil. On that fateful night, around midnight, Vitória left her workplace. What followed was a script of terror, narrated in audios sent via WhatsApp to a friend. In them, the young woman describes the presence of two suspicious men at the bus stop, one of them following her onto public transportation. Fear sets in, and anguish grows. Vitória's absence at home and the silence of her cell phone triggered an immediate alert. The police were called, and security cameras at the mall where the young woman worked recorded her last steps towards the bus stop. The images confirmed the presence of one of the suspects, boarding the same vehicle as Vitória. Witnesses reported a car with men following the young woman, an ominous omen. Upon disembarking from the bus, Vitória still had a long walk home, a path that would prove dangerous and lonely. In a distressing audio, she describes the encounter with two men and a car. Despite her attempt to disguise her dread, Vitória's voice reveals the terror that consumed her. The presence of men in a car, following her, intensifies the feeling of imminent danger. With the preliminary information, the police began the investigation, identifying the mysterious vehicle and the suspects. The search for Vitória, who needed to walk a long way home, became a race against time. The question that echoes in everyone's minds is, how did a 17-year-old girl find herself in such a vulnerable situation? According to released information, Vitória's father, who usually picked her up from work, couldn't do so that night because his adapted car was in the shop. The lack of transportation options, such as Uber, in the area, forced her to rely on the bus and walk the rest of the way. The absence of alternatives, a dead end where the choice boils down to an inevitable path, turned the journey home into a deadly trap. The lack of options, the feeling of being cornered, creates a scenario where the victim becomes easy prey, with no escape, no hope of avoiding the cruel fate that awaits her. The feeling of helplessness, the awareness that there is nowhere to run, intensifies the terror and anguish. The absence of security, the feeling of vulnerability in a hostile environment, completed the perfect scenario for the action of malicious people. The lack of protection, the feeling of being exposed to imminent dangers, transforms the way home into a trail of terror. The darkness, loneliness, and feeling of abandonment create an environment conducive to the action of predators, who take advantage of the victim's fragility to satisfy their most perverse instincts. The perfect scenario for the action of malicious people, a stage where human evil reveals itself in its cruelest form, was meticulously constructed. The combination of the lack of alternatives and the absence of security turned the journey home into a deadly trap, where the victim became easy prey for predators lurking in the shadows. The feeling of helplessness, the awareness that there was no escape, intensified the terror and anguish, transforming what should have been a safe return into a never-ending nightmare. In a scenario where violence against women is configured as a ruthless jungle, where the prey finds herself unprotected against lurking predators, the story of Vitória Regina de Souza emerges as a cry for help. After her disappearance, a week of intense searches culminated in the discovery of her body on March 5th, in a macabre and deplorable state. The Cajamar Municipal Guard team, with the help of a sniffer dog, found the body in an advanced state of decomposition, evidencing a crime of extreme violence and torture. The media reaction was immediate, given the signs of a brutal murder. Vitória's hair was shaved, she had deep wounds in her throat, her body was naked, with her hands tied behind her back and partially dismembered. A plastic bag on her hands suggested meticulous care by the killers to avoid traces of genetic material. The police, however, could not confirm sexual abuse due to the body's condition, although suspicion remains. Approximately 10 meters from the body, belongings and buried hair strands were found, sent for forensic analysis. The forensics also indicate that the crime may have occurred elsewhere, due to the small amount of blood at the scene. Vitória's last cell phone signal was recorded near a dam 30 kilometers away, raising the hypothesis that she was killed there and transported to the location where she was found. The coldness and planning of this crime are evident. Vitória, for her part, experienced moments of terror before being murdered, as revealed by audios sent to her friend. The police believe she was held captive for 2 days. The investigations, which include statements from friends, family, and suspects, are ongoing, focusing on people close to the victim. The alarming statistic that 95% of killers are men and 50% of murdered women are victims of people close to them reinforces the importance of investigating Vitória's social circle. 7 men are in the police's sights, with 2 main lines of investigation: the ex-boyfriend, the current relationship, a fling, the 2 young men at the bus stop, the 2 men in the car, and the vehicle owner, who allegedly lent it to the suspects. Gustavo Enrique Lira, one of Vitória's ex-boyfriends, voluntarily presented himself to the police station and cooperated with the police, being ruled out as a suspect so far. Given the complexity and severity of Vitória's case, the police investigation unfolds on multiple fronts, seeking to unravel the truth behind this heinous crime. The collaboration of witnesses and suspects is crucial for the progress of the investigations. Gustavo Enrique Lira, 26, Vitória's ex-boyfriend, also among the investigated, voluntarily presented himself to the police station and gave a statement, cooperating with the authorities. His statements and a video released on social media demonstrate his willingness to cooperate with the investigation. So far, he has been ruled out as a suspect. The police are working with the hypothesis of femicide, motivated by a toxic relationship between him and Vitória. Messages exchanged between them on the night of the disappearance raised suspicions, with viewing and response times that do not match the suspect's accounts. A crucial point in the investigation is the analysis of the messages, which reveal inconsistencies in the viewing and response times. Gustavo's lawyer claims they were just friends and that he only saw Vitória's message at 4 a.m., as he was on a date. However, the police discovered that he replied "okay" much earlier than that time, which raises suspicions. New names emerge on the horizon of the investigation, expanding the range of suspects and deepening the complexity of the Vitória case. Michael Antonio Salas dos Santos, owner of the Corolla car seen in the vicinity of the disappearance site, emerges as a figure of interest to the authorities. The presence of his vehicle at a crucial moment raises incisive questions about his possible involvement in the crime, demanding a thorough analysis of his activities and motivations. Daniel Lucas Pereira, for his part, becomes the target of a search warrant, a clear indication that the police consider him a relevant suspect. Daniel's connection to Gustavo adds a layer of intrigue and mystery to the investigation. The hypothesis that Daniel may have been involved in the crime, driven by jealousy, revenge, or other obscure motives, is explored by the authorities with diligence and attention to detail. The relationship between Daniel and Gustavo becomes a focal point of the investigation, a crucial knot to untangle to unravel the truth behind Vitória's death. The police seek to understand the dynamics of this complex relationship and how it connects to the disappearance and tragic fate of the young woman. The analysis of messages, calls, and other communication records between the three individuals becomes a priority, with a hope that these digital clues will reveal hidden secrets and provide crucial elements for the clarification of the crime. The police are investigating the hypothesis of jealousy as a motive for the crime, with Daniel feeling jealous of Gustavo, Vitória's ex-boyfriend. Michael's car photo on Daniel's cell phone, the triangulation of cell phone signals, and Michael's inconsistent alibi raise suspicions about his involvement. The investigation is still ongoing, and the police are analyzing all the clues and statements to clarify the case. The hypothesis of the involvement of a criminal organization has been ruled out, but the police are not ruling out any line of investigation. The police's attention is focused on Vitória's father, Carlos Alberto Souza, an app driver. The police are investigating whether the breakdown of his car on the night of the disappearance was a coincidence or a planned act. The investigation seeks to determine if the crime was premeditated or an impulsive act. The complexity of the case requires caution in the disclosure of information, so as not to compromise the investigations. The police are working with various hypotheses and seeking concrete elements to identify those responsible for the crime. The suffering of Mr. Carlos Alberto Souza, Vitória's father, is inconceivable. In addition to the pain of loss, he was exposed to a disrespectful and cruel situation during a live interview on Read Globo, conducted by Patricia Poda. Mr. Carlos, visibly shaken, with a distant look, was confronted with details of the investigation as if he were watching a cooking show. The lack of empathy and sensitivity in conducting the interview is alarming. The presenter exposed information about an alleged love triangle involving Gustavo, Daniel, and Vitória, as if she were narrating a cake recipe. The exposure of Mr. Carlos to this situation, in a moment of extreme fragility, is a portrait of the trivialization of violence and the exploitation of other people's suffering. The investigation of the Vitória case is ongoing, with the police investigating all the details to identify those responsible for the crime. New information emerges at every moment, which makes constant monitoring of the case essential. The police investigation remains under secrecy, but the search for justice for Vitória continues. The young woman, who disappeared on February 26th and was found dead on March 5th, left an irreparable void in her family. The community cries out for answers and for justice. The complexity of the case and the constant updating of information require caution in the disclosure of news. The police are working with various lines of investigation and seeking concrete elements to identify those responsible for the crime. It is expected that the investigation will progress and that the culprits will be held accountable. The hypothesis of a premeditated crime, with the involvement of people close to the victim, gains strength as the investigation progresses. The breakdown of Mr. Carlos's car on the night of the disappearance, for example, raises suspicions about possible planning of the crime. The police's attention is focused on Vitoria's social circle, a tangle of relationships that is now under the scrutiny of the authorities. Every friend, family member, and acquaintance is seen as a potential piece of the puzzle, and the search for motives intensifies. The investigation seeks to identify if the crime was motivated by jealousy, a feeling that, in its darkest form, can lead to acts of extreme violence. Past and present love relationships are analyzed in detail, in search of signs of possessiveness, control, or resentment. Revenge is another line of investigation, a motive that feeds on grudges and accumulated resentments. The police are exploring the possibility that someone close to Vitória harbored resentment, seeking to identify past conflicts and possible disagreements. Broken friendships, heated discussions, and other events that may have generated animosity are carefully examined, in an attempt to unravel whether someone wanted to harm the young woman. In addition to jealousy and revenge, the investigation seeks other factors that may have motivated the crime. The complexity of human relationships makes it impossible to rule out other possibilities, and the police remain open to different scenarios. The search for answers extends to all aspects of Vitoria's life, from her daily activities to her dreams and aspirations. Every detail, however small it may seem, may hold the key to unraveling the mystery behind her premature death.
Passou uns caras no carro. E eles falaram, e aí, vida, e tá voltando. Ai, meu Deus do céu, eu vou chorar, vou ficar mexendo no celular, vou nem ligar pra eles. Ai, tá tudo certo, eles entraram pra dentro da favela. Saiu até lágrima dos meus olhos agora. Nossa, até me arrepiei. Na hora que eles passaram lá do outro lado, eles falariam e vida. Aí eles voltou, filho. Pronto, meu trancou. Falei, pronto, esse menino vai voltar aqui. Mas aí eles pegaram e entraram ali na favela. O que acontece? As coisas eu não consigo correr. Eu paraliso, eu não sei o que eu faço. Eu não consigo correr, eu fico parada. Ai, amiga, mas tá de boa, sabe?
Thank you so much for watching this story. Your presence and support are essential for me to continue creating quality content. So, if you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any new episodes. Your subscription and comments are fundamental for me to keep bringing quality content. Leave your opinion in the comments, always with respect for the victims, and together let's build an even better community. Thank you so much for following my work, and I'll see you in the next episode.